I always like to know what is most important to you. Like, what is your favorite scene? And that we will never cut. Will you tell me that? I'll do whatever I can to not cut it. Or your favorite sequence, or what you love best about the episode. So that when we're doing meetings, I'm not giving away. I'm not showing the hand. I'm trying to preserve all the things that you've quickly told me about,
Right.
And my philosophy in like at all the meetings is to say, are we saying everything that we want? Are we, it's okay to dream. Like in TV, there's this concept where you don't dream big because you know what it's going to end up. But unless you know what the dream is, you're not going to understand how to get where you want to be and make all these cuts. My philosophy is encourage people to just think about things in concept. Literally, it's called the concept meeting, right? What is the biggest concept? There'll be an eye roll or a ugh. Like, we know, we're not foolish. We're not stupid. We know we're not going to get to do all of it.
So I was thinking.
It's like, you want to do a drone in the building. Okay, let's ask. Like, it's not been done.
Yeah.
But it just, I'm used to that world of like, literally like somebody saying, okay, I'm going to blow up that whole block.
Right.
You mean you're going to, and then you're going to pay. No, we're going to blow it all up. Okay. Okay, that's what went. And so I'm just used to hearing the big idea. And now I know in TV, we can't do it all, but we can do some of it, right?
Yeah.
In some ways, we find a way to even do it better because, necessity is the mother of invention. If we can't have access to that, or there's no money for that, we'll find the next best thing, which could actually be the best thing.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is a podcast on directing for anybody that's, quite simply, ever watched anything. Visit PeteChatmon.com to get your official podcast merch, hoodies, hats, jackets, mugs, and other swag, and learn more about your host.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by the good folks at Scriptation. Scriptation is the Emmy Award-winning app for production that allows you to mark up scripts, transfer notes, generate breakdowns, and so much more. No matter where you fall on the call sheet, Scriptation makes it easy to go paperless, collaborate with your crew, and save hours of time. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to learn more and receive a special offer exclusive to Let's Shoot listeners. Now, on to the show. All right. What's up, people? Welcome to episode 63 of Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon, starring Maria Mantia, first assistant director. I want to thank everybody for listening to the premiere last week of season 5 with Jamil Salim. Great feedback. Appreciate that, y'all. I will say again, if you like what you hear and like what you see, leave a comment on YouTube, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, spread the word, submit a question on our IG pages, whether that's at Pete Chatmon or at Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon, or on the YouTube page, and we will get to it. But just building the community up here and really liking the engagement and want to increase that. Another way I'm going to do that is those watching on YouTube, you'll see I got a pile of books here over my shoulder for the remaining, 8 episodes that have not yet been released. I'm going to try and find a couple ways to do some signed book giveaways. So I'll be brainstorming that, thinking about it, but we hope to get a few of those in the hands of our avid listeners. So thank y'all. What's the catch up? Over the last week, as I mentioned in episode 62, I'm re-embracing the meeting. I don't know if re-embrace is a word, but it feels like the right thing for what I'm trying to communicate. So I'm re-embracing the meeting, especially since we're returning to an in-person industry after after COVID took all of that off the table for several years. I sat down with Artist Equity earlier in the week. That's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's company. A buddy of mine, Andrew Reed, who is a director and an executive. He shadowed me on Fatal Attraction back in, I guess that was 2022. Hard to keep track of these years with COVID and all. But yeah, he's an executive there, and he brought me in to meet with the film department. So I got to talk about my journey and the types of things I'm developing, including, of course, the heist film that we're finishing up, or that we finished up. And I also got to reconnect with Charlize Antoinette, who is a talented, award-winning costume designer and also an executive there. So really cool thing happening over there, this kind of hybrid of creative and executive. And by creative, I mean like artist, I guess, because executives can be creative as well, but the artist executive. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of what they're doing there. I think they've got The Accountant shooting right now. And yeah, it was a great chat. I also met with the current department at Lionsgate. For those that don't know, studios have two different departments that focus on their television landscape. Current deals with anything that's on the air currently, and then development deals with things that are being ushered to the air. So that could be hearing pitches, that could be finding pilot directors for those things once they're ready to move forward, building out cast, optioning books, whatever it might be. But it was a great conversation. 6 people that I've been aware of and that have actually been hiring me over the past few years, but we never got to meet in person. Some of the best, smartest executives in town. So it was really a pleasure to sit down and chat with them. And they've got shows everywhere. I mean, they've got Ghosts, as an example, over at CBS. They've got Yellow Jackets over at Showtime. They've got Mythic Quest over at Apple TV and BMF over at Starz. So quite a diverse slate of content. And the experience of the executives kind of reflect how they're able to usher that kind of diversity of material to your screen. So that was another great meeting. And I am, I guess if there were a drum roll, if Tristan wants to add a drum roll in the edit, on Tuesday, I booked 2 more episodes of TV. So that was super dope and a blessing. I'll reveal the shows later, but one show is a very Emmy-nominated and I believe Emmy Award-winning premium cable show that is going to be very, very fun. And the other is a spinoff of a highly acclaimed broadcast show, one of the most successful broadcast shows that's out there. So I'm excited about that, exploring a new world for a show that many, many millions of people are already familiar with. So that'll be fun. That'll be my July, August, and August, September work after I finish High Potential, which will be next up for me. And what else happened? Yesterday, I'm recording this early Saturday morning, y'all. I don't know if I sound any more quiet than normal, but the family is asleep. So I'm trying to, do the work and keep it quiet. But yesterday I filmed the final 3/8 of a page of my Reasonable Doubt episode 202 scene, as show shot in Atlanta. And we had a week of LA shoots to get that LA vibe and texture in there. So I had a 2-person scene, went out, shot that for about 2.5 hours, and officially completed my work on the show. And season 2 of Reasonable Doubt was officially completed after Anton Cropper, the producing director, was able to complete the scenes that he had on the docket. So that was that. So let's see. Before we get into the interview this week with Maria Mantia, of course, we have our new segment, Crew Call. And this time I wanted to do a little alley-oop. So we got a submission from Marc Kelly. He's a first AD. And I thought it would be pretty interesting to have one AD set up the longer conversation with another. So without further ado, here is Marc Kelly's Crew Call submission.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marc Kelly, and I am a first assistant director. I've been in production for about 35 years. 27 of those years as a first AD. I've been in the DGA for the past 14 years, and I have worked on such projects as Blind Spotting, Johnson, Wicked City. Started off as a PA intern. My very first production job where I got paid was The Cosby Show. I was on that for a couple of years. I worked on We're in the World's Carmen San Diego. From there, hit the wave of music videos in the early 90s, segued into commercials, and then from there, film and television. And basically what a first AD does is you are the person who is kind of the anchor of the production. You're the person who sets the schedules. You do all of the meetings, and you make sure that everything is in place, location, talent, and equipment-wise, so that way when you do shoot, you can then go and take all of those elements and make it into a successful shoot. Even though I'm originally from Detroit, I've been in New York for the past, let's say off and on for the past 40 years. And I really feel as if when you're on the shoot, all questions come towards the AD. Yes, there are producers and UPMs and directors, EPs and whatnot, but 95% of the questions on the shoot go straight to the first AD. And so you have to be fair, you have to be focused. You also have to make sure that the morale on the set is good, everyone feels protected, and everyone feels acknowledged and also informed. So I've been a fan of Pete's work for quite some time, and I'm really glad that he's putting this call sheet process together so that we can all have our community and get to know each other. Thank you very much. Carpe diem.
All right. Thank you, Marc, for submitting that video. Much love, much respect. Anyone else that is interested in submitting their crew call video, please make a 2-minute video. Turn your phone sideways, put it in landscape mode, and let us know what you do in your position on set, whether film or TV. You can email that to letsshootwithpetechatmon@gmail.com. No apostrophe in the let's. Chatmon is Chatmon. Let's shoot with PeteChatmon@gmail.com, and we'll work to get it on the show and or on our social media. Now, let's get to Maria Mantia. She is a first assistant director, someone I had the pleasure of working with on Interior Chinatown for Hulu, which will be coming out, I hope, sometime soon. Really proud of that show. I'm just anxious to see it because it's really good, and I want y'all to see it too. But I knew I was in good hands on that show because Maria has done everything from film to TV. I'll just throw credits at you in no particular order, but she's done Star Trek Picard as a first AD, Welcome to Chippendales, Black Lightning, Westworld, all as a first AD. Her film work, she started as a PA on Fight Club. She was a second AD on Benjamin Buttons. She worked on Night and Day as a second AD. She was first AD on Authors Anonymous. She goes back and forth. She knows what she's doing. She's funny. She's great to work with. And without further ado, she's Maria Mantia. And let's get to the interview.
Roll sound.
Speed.
The interview. Take 1.
All right, Maria Mantia, welcome to the podcast. This has been another one I've been excited to learn a little bit more about a collaborator and their field and their craft. But welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
Thank you. Great. I'm so excited to be here. When I first met you, I'm so honored that I'm your first you said this to me, your below the line interview. Your crew collaborator, although you did have a DP on. I've seen Mike.
I've had a DP and an editor, but I do feel like no one really ever gets a pat on the back for a perfectly scheduled episode like they should. And it does not schedule itself. And I know that's one of the many things that you do, that you did on our Interior Chinatown episode. And so, yeah, and I'm excited to chat and learn more about the journey.
Well, I'm honored, and thanks for having me. I've watched a lot of them, so I like the vibe. It's very conversational, which is so funny because the reason why I was so excited about this is because ever since we did our episode, I have been thinking, I have this strong remembrance of you and I sitting there one day on set, right? It was just you and me. Some people were coming in and out. It was at lunch. We were waiting for the intimacy coordinator to call us. So we just sat. We just grabbed a chair, and we just got into this conversation, which has been one of the most real conversations I've ever had with anybody on any film set, TV set. It was so memorable in that way. We weren't even bitching. It wasn't back then. It was very it was how we've evolved in the business and just telling our stories and how we've grown. And it was one of the most amazing conversations I've ever had. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. But it's like the honesty, the reflection, the the self-deprecation.
Oh yeah.
All of that shit goes into just making somebody, you want to learn more about them. Yeah. And having had Jada, who's our assistant producer on the show, she's pulled all your credits into a lovely prep document for me. And there's a lot going on here, and there's so much that, things that I didn't know you were involved in, things where I'm like, oh, we must know more people than we are aware of that we have in common. But before we get to that, let's talk about where you're from and how you began to kind of find your connection to entertainment.
Cool. So I'm from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where all those big universities are. I stopped saying Boston because people then like, where in Boston? Like they want to know more. So I'm from Cambridge, technically North Cambridge, right near, I'm going to let my accent come out, right near Harvard Square, right there.
I love it.
Yeah. And I went there and I had no film background through high school and college. I went to college in Western Mass as well, to Smith College. And I had no film background whatsoever. There were no classes that I took. I did go to high school with some very famous filmmakers from Cambridge. I won't name drop, but they're there. You must know who they are. So I was always very aware when I became an adult and moved to California that people were in this business. I figured it out pretty quickly. I had one class in college that was called like video field production, which is they basically just gave you a camera. It wasn't about, this is how you shoot. Here's the on button. Here's a camera. You get it for 24 hours. Go film something. So like, that's what got me. It was like, oh, so anyone can do this.
What did you make? What was like one of your first projects?
I made this thing. It was funny. I made this thing. It was the 100-year anniversary of women's basketball. And I went to school at Smith College, which is they call it the birthplace of women's basketball. The very first women's game was played at Smith College. Oh, cool. So they were doing this big weekend of events, and I was actually on the basketball team. So I filmed just like a tribute to, so I filmed a little bit of the college. I went to the archives and pulled out, this was like a little mini documentary. I pulled out some images and some articles, and we made some recordings, and I showed the gym and learned how to do some interesting fades to the photos. It was fun.
Did you create the Ken Burns effect? Is that what I'm hearing?
I did create, this was 1992. I did a very interesting fade from a gym where women were now playing, and faded it back to a photograph, which then brought me into the narrative. So it was kind of cool. I didn't know what I was doing. It just was fun. And I didn't feel like what I needed to know I couldn't just gather by doing wrong and doing not so well. And so it's been fun. And that's been my motto. Do it and then do it better the next time. Like I've just kept going with everything. That was my one and only though.
That was one and only. You said one opus, one and done.
That's it.
So in that, was there any particular part of the process that you were most intrigued by? You know what I mean? Like, was it the editing? Was it the directing? Was it just being involved in crafting a story? Like what hit you?
Yeah, it was, I was amazed that even just through photographs, you could tell a story. So I picked like a series of photographs, and that was the part that felt like, not that anyone can do it. Like anyone can do it. There's not a lot of people who can do it really, really, really well. But you could just take photographs that meant something to you. So it was just me seeing the meaning in something. There was this one woman who had like a long skirt on, and I just thought, how can you play in a skirt? And then you could see and the evolution of it was funny. So I pulled some things that just resonated with me. And that was the part in everything I do. There's always a part of an episode or a part of a season that I'm just like, this for me is everything in the season. This one moment here. And there's usually a few, but just feeling something and having it resonate with you was like the best part. It wasn't the camera. I mean, it was shaking all over, and I sat on the back of a bicycle to do like a moving shot, and it was a hot mess. But it was fun, and it didn't matter because there was some interesting narration over it. But just to see the image as it's moving and everything combined, the music, everything, just feel something was really powerful that I created, like for the first, to make that connection was kind of interesting.
I'm jumping ahead, but I'm interested in knowing, like, when you look at a job that you come on nowadays as an AD, are you looking for that same kind of connection to the material, or like what's your compass?
Yeah. When I can, when it's not like, oh, I got to feed my babies. When there's a moment to sit back and kind of decide what the next thing you'd like to do is, I seize the moment. When I love my pedigree. I'm sure we'll get into that, but I have a very film-centric pedigree with lots of true craftsmen of this industry. And that was my pedigree. And I learned so much. And the reason I made a huge pivot into TV when I had my children, knowing that I just, I dragged them and my wife, all over the United States for about 2 years. And then the insanity hit me and, for my family as well. So I pivoted to TV. And at that moment, I was looking for stuff that felt like film, just big scope, things that were just lit beautifully. And every filmmaker and, TV maker wants the same thing. It's like, but sometimes you don't have all the resources. But I immediately gravitated to like projects like Deadwood that felt like it was going to be cinematic. So at first it was like, if I can choose a show, I'm going to do a cinematic show. Right. And then I had my kids. Okay. And then I started looking for stuff that I thought would like make me a better mom, or just like a better person, just like to find empathy and stuff. It wasn't about, how do we get the coolest thing? It's like, let's learn about these people who have struggles, and my kids have some struggles. And so I was choosing stuff like Better Things, a TV series that I did, which is like really goes deep into motherhood and raising kids. And it's just like, I really gravitated to, so that was a choice for me to go do that. And with Interior Chinatown, it was a moment where I was like, I've never read anything like this. I'm going to wait. I remember waiting. I got the call in July and I didn't start till October. And I just remember waiting, going, can I do this? Can I wait this long? But it just sort of worked out. I was so happy that I did, because, it will stick with me. And there was a lot of stuff about that project where we did a lot of things in honor of the Chinese culture, just like stuff that you don't always get to pay attention to. And it was so cool. So yeah, when I get the chance, I gravitate towards something that I've never read before. It's something new actually on the page, which is so rare, or something that speaks to my life. Like I was, learning how to be a better mom. And so like I gravitated toward Better Things. And then, when I went from film into TV, I didn't know what I didn't know what it would be like. So I just wanted the thing that I knew the best, right? Would be the big cinematic thing. But I've done so much since, things that I've had to do. And, I wanted to do a superhero thing. So I went out and found one of those. Well, it's just been interesting.
So that's it. I want to come back to how you go out and find that superhero job, but just manifest it. But I'm dabbling in that a little bit more now. Going from that first project and then becoming, and you tell me if IMDb is right, but I have your first thing being If These Walls Could Talk in 2000 as a second AD.
Yeah. Well, if you want to say first thing, the very first thing I did when I moved here from Cambridge, Massachusetts was I did a couple little small things that I don't even remember what they were. They were just the thing that gave me the bug, right? They were like, a guy over at USC was like, come here tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'll give you $100 cash. You're going to be in charge of lining up a bunch of cars. I didn't even know what it was. It was like one of those like Japanese commercials. Yeah. Famous movie stars in it, right? So, but the first like real job that I remember getting was on the set of Armageddon. So the big Michael Bay. Oh no, sorry, before that. So the very first job I got, I met an AD randomly. One of my favorite ADs, her name is Chitra. And she's like this old battle axe. She's like famous AD, right? She brought me to Mexico to shoot The Mask of Zorro. It had Anthony Hopkins and Antonio Banderas, Catherine Zeta-Jones. And it was like a big movie. And it was my first one. And like she literally took me under her wing to just even teach me the basics. knowing that she didn't even have time. And she's like a second AD running an international movie with cast from everywhere. But she really did just sit me down and like take me through it all. And I think by the end of that, I felt like I could do anything. I was a PA, and then I came back and we started working right away on Armageddon. So I did a couple like very big movies. And I knew I wanted to do it. I'm like, this is it. I never found anything in college that I really, really liked. Although I had a major and everything, it made sense and I did okay. But I never caught a bug until I came out here with the plan to go to get a master's. But then I just pivoted. So those are my first.
And now I'm saying this is me not knowing how to read a document because as you say that, I'm like, oh wait, I was only looking at the TV credit. I see the film credit.
My pedigree is so
was Naked Souls 1996 as assistant production coordinator. And so then, you had done, as you said, you had about 4 years, I guess, in film before you made that pivot to TV. I mean, I see Fight Club, Set PA. Do you have any particular stories from that? Because I know that's such a seminal film for anybody that loves film.
Everyone, it's like, I don't even want to, I still have a little section on my resume, like of just like, I have it only because of Fight Club where I have like PA credits because I can't let that one go. That is the most incredible experience that I've had. And as a PA, strangely enough, you get incredible access, right? Because you're doing almost everything. Okay. Your job is not specialized. Like I'm sweeping the floor. I'm moving bodies around. I'm doing it all. I'm helping the grips. I'm hanging with the director, make sure he or she's son is not on their monitor. Like so many things, but that's so much access.
Right.
On that particular job, I was in charge of those guys called the Space Monkeys. I don't know, the guys that shave their heads.
Right. Yeah.
Guys that were fighting. And I think it's because I also had a Boston accent at the time and it was really thick that I was helping with that as well. And I remember being with that group of guys and they all had like amazing hair. We cast them because A, they had amazing hair. B, they would do anything for a guy like David Fincher, right? And to be in this movie. So one of the requirements was you're going to have to quote unquote shave your head. I don't even know how much detail we gave them.
Right.
But I remember we were getting ready. We had shot a bunch of days with them and we were getting ready to do the scene where they all come in and they're just like bald. They've shaved their heads. And I said, okay, today's the day. And they were all just like having second thoughts and maybe we can use a hat. And I'm like, maybe Fincher says you're we're doing this. I was like, give me the clippers. And I just started shaving one side of my head because A, I didn't want to upset Mr. David Fincher. B, I wanted to do my job because you live in fear of making mistakes. And C, it was like such a cool thing to do with all of these guys. I mean, this is what crazy shit you do in film. We're going to shave our heads and I am too. Okay.
And you shaved your whole head?
No, I started to. And I'm like, okay, now you guys do it. So I had like a little bit of a Lisa Cult Jam moment.
Yeah.
But it's just like, that's what's crazy. There was so much on that to me that felt, it was like a big studio movie and we had everything we needed, but it was sort of off the radar. Nobody came down. There wasn't like studio wasn't coming in, checking us out. We were just doing stuff.
There's a whole book about that. I think it's a book I read that was like that was right before all of the studios have become multinational conglomerates. And so guy was that, I don't even remember who that was. I don't know if that was Sony or not.
Yeah, that was a Fox, 20th Century.
Yeah, so like that film, Three Kings, the Royal Tenenbaums, they were all in this kind of, in hindsight, this limbo period without higher up governance, and they were just making $50 million independent films. Yeah.
And I mean, in like David's pedigree, Fincher's pedigree was like from, he did some big time music videos for propaganda. I think that's some of his pedigree. So but he was just used to, it wasn't ever going to be small. And I've done several projects with him just for the ability to keep learning, you know? So, so that was, and I did another show. I did another one of his movies shortly after we did Panic Room. Mm-hmm. And it was such a different experience because Panic Room was everybody had a binder And I don't even remember the days of like real previs, like Pixel Liberation Front was the company, PLF. They generate a binder of every single shot in the movie, like to the point of we're on a 40 and we're 12 inches away from from the stair or whatever. Literally that much detail. And so having to go through that, I watched that process and we carried around this binder like it was a Bible. Right. And even an actor would say, okay, so like I should start here. Well, I'm going to end up over here. And it was like, no. You're
going to be right here. Because that was the kind of conceit of that movie was the camera was moving through space like in ways it had never done before, right? Like it was like you're going into like the fucking flame on the stove and then coming out on the other side and whatnot. Yeah, that was crazy.
So the technical part of that job was also very attractive to me. Just learning that there is a lot of technique in this craft, lots of it. And to learn from somebody like that was kind of incredible. So, seeing the other side where we were shooting, just all out brawl. And there's no, there is technique there, but guys are just going for it. They're actually fighting some of the time. And then you're in this very sterile, completely composed environment. And it's down to the inch. And so it was, I just learned, I could see both sides of it. And then also like just knowing that there's all in between. There's so much in between,
Right.
That was the 4 years of movie making. It was good in a way because, my only regret was actually not doing like a big, I was thinking about this the other day because I did a lot of big movies in those 4 years in order to get into the, I did those first few movies got me into the Directors Guild because movies back then, all the Fincher movies especially, were like 180 days. They just, that's how long it took. It might have said, you might have been on day 80 of, you might have been on day 180 of 80. Like you went over. Right. So I ended up getting into the guild in 2001 and I started in the business at the very end of 96. So it was quick.
How many days did you need? And has that changed?
Yeah, it's always changing. I had so many non-union AD days that just happened while I was PAing as well. And so I think you still need like 400. It's a battle. It's a lot. You can, if you're working PA and you're working on long things or TV, episodic TV, you're going to get them really quickly. It's when you have to become an AD. So I got in as a PA and became a second, and I had to do jobs that were either a lower tier or you have to go out of town. And both things happened for me. So I got in after it was 120 days, I remember. It was like that. So that was lucky and good. And I'm very grateful that happened because you could be years in the making there.
So I'd love if you, because while we're here, like I'm looking back and forth, right? Because you're still doing films also. I see like, unless it's wrong here, your first AD or your first job as a first AD on a film was Friends with Money. But meanwhile, you're doing TV work. So like, I'd love if you can kind of break down maybe from the bottom up what it is to, you've kind of mentioned what a PA does.
Yeah.
And then kind of going up the chart. I don't know if the key PA is next or what the responsibilities look like for each of those jobs as you moved your way up to first AD.
Again, as a PA, and then this quote unquote key PA, which is a thing now that people like to use. We've never had it because usually on movies when I was coming up, there were 3 of us handling all the business and we were all just doing everything. So there was like no key, but literally like that's the starting guy. That's ground zero as a PA. And you should say yes to everything. You should do everything. You should do the worst job. You should lock up 20 miles away. But it's really to support all the filmmakers, right? Our jobs as ADs will always be in support of, in the vision of. So that's just the mindset and it carries through the next job. So when you become a second, you take all your PA experience and you jump right on the set. And I think one of your main jobs is to help set the background. And so you instantly get put in this creative position, which...
Can I ask why they don't call it a third AD instead of a second AD?
Yeah, I don't know. I never knew because like you go film in England and they have third ADs and I It's just so funny. I'm going to have to, no one's ever asked me that. And that is the best question I've ever had about what that is. It's so funny. I think because there's additional second ADs, it might make it seem lower, but it's actually higher than an additional. So maybe that's why. I don't know. It's all rank, right?
Yeah.
But like the really cool thing about that is as a PA, you're seeing everything. You're getting excited about everything. You're working really hard. You're getting to know everybody on the crew. Everybody talks to you. You talk to everybody. So you learn everything about every job. Like everybody on a film set wants to do something else, right? They want to do the next thing. So they're giving you all this knowledge and you're taking it in. So I think like the coolest jump, I think, is from PA to second. It comes with this massive responsibility of doing paperwork, which is like the production report at the end of the night, which is just like a summary of how you did, right? How much film you shot, how many setups. You know, there are people that are very interested in those metrics.
Right. Here's a pop quiz, and it won't be much of a quiz for you, because I just shot in New York, and so I had a teamster who would pick me up and drop me off every day. Yep. Just me. But when I would arrive at set, there would be someone to meet me at the van and walk me in. Who was that?
PA, probably.
PA, okay. There's no like, that could be any PA. There's not like a specific
I think in this world now of very specialized, like PAs have become so specialized, right? So it's probably the on-set PA, the one that you'll deal with a lot possibly, is to, hey guys, make sure when Pete lands, somebody's there to bring him in, right? And so it's that person. It's like, for me, it would be the on-set person. And we have people loading vans. We have people, it's so specialized. And then I let the second AD take over there because they're like running that massive logistical show, right?
Right.
Well, hopefully it was somebody that you would see again. It wouldn't just be this person.
Yeah, no, they were great. And what's so interesting too, about periodically shooting in New York is that, you know, the last time I was there was 2021 to do Love Life.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll go on set and you'll be like, oh shit, you were like a second, you know, last time I was here. Now you're the second AD. Like, okay, that's what's up. You know, like it's really cool. And you can see the confidence shift. Yeah. And just the like facility through which they kind of know how to do their job. It's really cool to see.
It is cool. One thing about a PA is like you need like 600 days to turn in your book to the Directors Guild. What other job do you know, right, that makes you train? It's basically training to be an AD. Right. 600 days of training. I mean, it's massive. And I think the good ones have so much good training.
Yeah.
It's really hard not to have seen or done a little bit of everything. Like it's a very successful pipeline, right? Because you've had to do that much. And so when you get to be second, you're setting the background. I mean, you're taking cues from the director and the first AD, and they're telling you, we want it busy. We want people really reacting, and you're running in there and you're setting the background. And on some of my bigger films, I was the second. So I was setting all this crazy background, and really, like, so many people will tell you they hate setting background. I love it. I love it. And as a first, I still do it, but I can't do as much of it as I'd like.
Yeah. No, it's an art form, and like it's something that for every director out there, you should be taking note of it because it's elevating your scenes, whether you're aware or not. Yeah. And you should be aware of when it's not and how it's not. Because sometimes, sometimes you may not get Maria. You might get somebody who's just beginning to do it, and you might have to keep your eye on it.
Oh, God, yeah. I know when I'm watching something, if I see this one person who just who's walking too slow, like a dead person, I just can't even. It just ruins my whole.
Or that sudden inability to act like a human being. Once it's like, okay, now here's what you're gonna do, and it's like, all right, background, and then like they start dancing like they've never danced in their life, or like using the phone in ways they've never done in life.
Overreacting.
Yeah, overreact. It's crazy.
Checking the watch. I mean, it's all just it's stuff you learn. I mean, I feel like the good second seconds are natural. Like it's one part of it you can't learn. You have to be living in the world. You have to be aware. You have to have moved through the world in many different ways so you can understand literally where everyone is coming from and figuratively. And so
that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, that's true.
I make it
it's like a writer. Like you can't write good dialogue. Like you can't teach good dialogue. You have to have an ear for it in the same way you need to have an eye for people and how they maneuver through time and space.
Yeah. And it helps. Like the journey for me in second was learning lenses, learning size, learning what's in, what's not, learning what's going to be blurred, like learning where to put my emphasis. So that was, you learn it fast. And also by experiencing that with the director, watching it alongside this person.
Right.
And just feeling whether they like it or not. And you're both stabbing at the monitor like that guy. And
right.
You start, and in TV, we have to be on it in a minute. Like we have a minute to get to know each other, fall in love, and just be the best, side by side. And it's important that we're listening and we're watching the way the director reacts to certain things so that we can say, oh no, he or she will not like that. No. And you just kind of know, but like in setting background, it was just trying to read. And even the actors, sometimes if stuff was distracting, you could see in an actor's eye, like he couldn't or she couldn't play a scene. And so you would just reduce it. So that was fun. Like the second has a lot. They have to, do the background. Nowadays, everyone has the phone and everyone needs a text update on how everything's going on the set. Yeah. Nobody can just walk down and say, how's it going? You have to send out a text. Well, this second's all like setting background and sending this text about how we're all doing on the set if we're on schedule. Right. And they're setting lockups. And so like sometimes the PAs, good ones have the ability to take some of that off a second's plate. So that was good. Right. So my favorite part of that job was, just being able to set the background and just make sure that everybody on set had everything they needed. Like, again, in service of. And it feels good. Like it felt good to do that.
Now, what about then when you are a second AD, what is that person doing?
The second AD just does everything. So a second that I love and I work with now, her name is Alex Duffy. She always says,
I know Alex Duffy.
She's amazing. Way better second than I ever was, will be, and can even imagine being. She's like past, present, future. So like the second is past, right? They're dealing with the production report at the end of the night and many other things. The second AD is like present, right? The first AD is present. I'm on the set. We're working stuff out. We're executing our plan. The second is future. Landing the company that day, and then they're off. And they're dealing with every little thing that has been discussed in prep. It is so much to juggle. You see the good ones, they have these massive books and they write everything down and they like check boxes and like literally check in every box to make sure that all these things that you've asked for or we need to make sure we have and we've discussed. Then they have to go chase down all the information. Did you test it? Did it work? But we I
marvel at all the information that you have to keep organized because like for me, every job, like I'm just saying shit, We'll do that, camera up there, probably a crane, I don't know. And
we're literally writing it all down.
And it'll be the the next meeting, the next redundant meeting where we go through everything again. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm in good hands. Because sometimes like I am making sure that it's there. Like I'm prepared to add it, but when I'm like, I said all that. Yeah. Exactly.
I mumbled it. Yeah. I wrote it on a napkin and threw it in the trash and she was dug it out of the trash. We just gave this little presentation at AFI for the director's workshop for women. Yeah. And a director friend of mine, Hannah Lee Culpepper, who's an amazing director.
She's great.
Was like, I want you to tell these students who want to be directors, these women, what the role of the AD is. And I'm like, I've never, that was such a focused presentation, right? And so it wasn't teaching them how to be a director. It was teaching them what my role is and how I can just make their life easier and take stuff off their plate. And they were amazed. They had no idea. They don't have to do everything. So I feel like as the first AD, I'm just here to take stuff off your plate. I'm here to take stuff off the crew's plate. Not everybody has to worry about every detail. I will worry about it. We will organize it, and so it's, besides just the basic job of scheduling, it's actually making sure the schedule is good for people, if the actors are going to be okay with it. So
now we're talking about like your first AD specific things, right?
Yeah. So I think the second AD is that's a separate podcast of like how much work this person has to do. Yeah. And it becomes, when I work with Alex, and she's so great, is that by the time even a director shows up 2 days after I've had the script, or 1 day or 20 minutes, we've recorded in memory all the scenes and exactly what happens in them.
Right.
I know he's getting in a car, not on a bike. Like, I just know it because I've read it twice now, and I've started to type it in. And so it's a real shorthand that all that information gets really, dealt out to whoever needs it. And so like the second AD, besides doing a call sheet, which is a massive document every single day, right?
Amazingly
That's how we
massive.
live. We have the schedules done by the first day of shooting. A lot of people just don't look at the schedule anymore. They're like, what's the next day, right? In TV, where that's like going so fast.
Right.
So I always say, check the call sheet, because overnight, and we like let everybody know, but it's got to be in writing. So that's kind of and they handle, just to wrap that up, but the second AD just handles the whole department and the crew and how people transport and make, it's just massive, right? It's just like the conduit from us, you and me, to the world. At large, the crew, the producers, all of it.
Hey, this is Jamil Salim, writer and producer of Bob's Burgers and South Park, and you're watching Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon.
Transitions, A Director's Journey and Motivational Handbook is Pete Chatmon's book from Michael Weezy Productions. The reviews are in. Greg Berlanti says, "There's a reason why everyone who works with Pete falls in love with his work. The lessons he imparts here are invaluable. Do yourself a favor and read it cover to cover." From Sarah Gamble, "Pete's sharing gold nuggets that will spare you a ton of wasted time and help you channel your drive, talent, and ambition in the most productive way." And from Jesse Williams, "This business has everything to do with preparation and expectations. Transitions grounds lessons in reality while empowering our artistry to run free. Not an easy balance to execute." Transitions, A Director's Journey and Motivational Handbook is available on Amazon and anywhere else you get your books. Don't forget about your mom and pop shops, people.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by the good folks at Scriptation. Scriptation is the Emmy Award-winning app for production that allows you to mark up scripts, transfer notes, generate breakdowns, and so much more. Personally, I use Scriptation daily on every production that I'm involved with. When I directed episodes 303 and 304 of CBS's Ghosts, I was able to include photos of specific props important to the story in the notes of my script so I could view them at a moment's notice and offer them as a reference to my actors. This is just one of the ways I use the incredible features inside of Scriptation. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to get an exclusive 20% off Scriptation's premium toolkit, Scriptation Industry Pro.
I want to come back to the first AD kind of universe with a specific question about the episode we worked on. But I did have this question that came into my mind, you're the director's kind of most trusted collaborator, I think, in the sense of especially in prep, you begin this relationship, everything is kind of in your hands to kind of make its way back to the larger production. While at the same time, you have an allegiance to the producers, what I mean? And to the UPM. And I know they're checking in and whatnot to see how things are going with that director. How do you handle when it's someone who is not really up for the job? And you've got and they're saying, "How's it going, Maria?" You know what I mean? What is that? How do you negotiate that? How do you handle that? How do you help that director? And what typically is beyond the vision of that director that they're failing to tap into or know how to do.
Yeah. I think you can see that stuff right away, right? Like
I knew day one, you were like, oh, damn, this guy.
I'm like, I'm in trouble here. It's like you can tell the moment a director walks in the door because they either if they're going to be amazing, they walk in with some questions, like right off the bat, like from reading the script, having a minute, and I literally mean a minute to think about it, to already know what is important, what isn't, like someone's muscle, like you can just tell, like, and so I immediately get a feeling for where I need to focus that person. Like if they're not seeing like some big important story because they're so focused on, I need to do this cool sequence and this is what I, so it's just to like present those ideas often.
Yeah.
And say, let's have a meeting, let's get talking to X, Y, and Z. And I like to do the tone meeting for as soon as the director feels able to and everyone feels able to, so that we are literally all on the same page of the showrunner, and the collaboration between showrunner and director is just so important. So like, I just start to feel out from that moment if this person is on the same, is ready to execute this vision. And then I feel like all the other things are, you know, because I'm from film, I am used to serving that God, right? So like my early pedigree says, director is in charge, get them what they want, singular vision. When I moved into TV, my job became this facilitator of, yes, I'm here to execute this vision, but the vision is shared between so many people. And the most important, the point of that triangle is the writer showrunner, right? It's the most important person in a TV series or on a limited series. So like writer producer. So, and it works out because most of the time, everyone is aware of that relationship. So there's never any, as I've seen, there's sometimes that, but it happens outside of the collaboration. And so I guess the best way is to like, yes, flood them with, you know, the last episode, we had a similar thing with this character, you know, watch it again and let's talk about it with so-and-so. You know, it's just giving them more tools. It's not my job to say something's right or wrong. Like I'm not in a creative position primarily or first and foremost. So it's just to say, let's watch that sequence again because the showrunner really liked that. And we always want to remember we need to do this. And like the DP, when we have two, is always in prep. So you always have some backup creatively, style wise. I feel like a lot of the mistakes happen in style, but you know, I've been so lucky to have all the most incredible directors on episodic TV. So I'm in a position where when it happens, it's so easily correctable because the person is smart and actually prepared. Like they've done the homework. They've watched, you know, if you get to direct episode 9, your homework becomes watching 1 through 8, right?
Yeah.
And I've lived them. So you have me and I've been there.
Yeah.
And I've had the benefit of sponging in all that. And when I deliver to you in a like, there's no judgment. It's just to say, this is the trajectory of how this has been going. Like, right.
Here's some information. Here's some data to use. And
it is. It's like for you. Yeah. So that usually corrects. That usually helps. The correction is just showing. It's that seeing is believing. Like what happened, and then getting them with the actors soon just to say hi. I feel like in TV, directors are guests, but they're very important guests, right? They're the most important guests at the party. And so like you have to make them feel welcome right away. And so it's just day one. Hey guys, meet Pete. We're so happy to, you know, like these are the ideas and like, let's all get in there. And so like, it's just introducing them to cast, the departments, and then it begins to like correct themselves. Cause what happens as a director who's going to maybe make those mistakes realizes that all of these people have a stake. They have ownership of this. And I think it becomes really clear where props and costumes, everyone's like, well, this is, this is because this is that. And then the director really, the beautiful thing about that is it's only then your job just to elevate it. And we're just here to help you, right? So like you've got this great base and you just have to take it up one notch. right?
Yeah.
Really
and
to make
find
it
something unique in it, or maybe your elevation is just energizing people to what first most excited them about it, that maybe by episode 9 ain't there at their fingertips, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like maybe you're the conduit to re-energize them, like you're saying. Okay, so I wanna it's rare that I get an opportunity to kind of have this kind of one-to-one conversation, but like Interior Chinatown, 10 episode show.
Yes.
We did episode 7 out of 10 together.
Yes.
You did, I'm assuming, all the odds.
Yes.
And so you did 5 episodes. When you received that script, what is it that you did? Now, I'm sure you got it before me because there's a different kind of, timeline, or well, it depends on the production, because there are some shows that will, like the episode of You that I did, I got that 4 or 5 weeks before I started, which was amazing. But like, when did you get it? And what do you literally sit down and begin to do?
Well, because Charlie, who's our showrunner, Charles Yu, cares so much about everything, that he was so forthcoming with all this information long before, once we got done with the pilot and Taika, once we completed that, things shifted a little bit. So we kind of had like a little regrouping, and then Charlie gave us the whole season. First, he talked about it. This is what's going to happen in the general, the global sense. And then he pared it down. So like in this episode, these are the things. And we sat with him, and he kind of went through everything. And then he handed us these drafts. I remember getting the draft for 7, even before we started shooting the pilot. When I got that script in full, it was weeks before. It was probably, I think, when we were just finishing episode 3, I got it. And then there was, and then basically that my role there is not to comment, oh, this is such a great script. It's just, and it was a great script. It was to say that the pattern of this is 18 days. So we are like significantly over. I scheduled it for them without having a director's input, which is in TV, a lot of what I have to do anyway, knowing that it changes when the director comes in.
And when you say the pattern based off of the pilot?
Just knowing that the studio expects us to do these in like 8, 9, 10, 11 days. Like each episode had a different, like pilot had more, and then the last episode had more. And we got extra because you and me, and we're cool, and we did it. And we got an extra day out of it because we were doing something different. We were trying to like go beyond, we were traveling for it, and we were doing things out on the road. It became a road show basically, but so those things take a little bit longer. But so I got that script, and then I got it back. So after they made some trims, I got it back right when I was finishing episode 5. I got it back, and it was actually in good shape. It went down to like 13 days. It just had to get to, I think we were allowed to shoot 11. I can't even remember. So they gave it back to me, and then I said, great, somehow you've done all this great stuff, and now we need to cut 2 days. And so then the expectation for me is to like, which I always hate doing because I'm not in a creative position, but is to suggest cuts. And I say, I'm going to make thoughtful cuts. They're probably not the ones that you would make. I'm looking at time, and if maybe we.
I will, if I may. I always and only because I know exactly what you're saying, but I also hesitate for people to hear that in a way that it may not be met, because I feel those cuts that you pitched were probably super creatively driven. You know what I mean? And everything that you're doing with time as the target is driven by a creative impulse. So I just want to interject there and not let it be diminished to like some like, what people think Zaslav is doing, to you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's not just like number crunching and debt reduction, but it's like, there's a thoughtfulness to it.
Yeah, well said. No, and I spend a lot of time because I know on every show, someone is going to walk up to the first, even before the director gets there, and say, so what are we going to cut?
Yeah.
What if a director has this script at home? Like, what if you were at home reading it and you're like, this is my favorite scene. And I'm like, cut it. And I haven't given you the opportunity, but like, these are and driving home every day, I'm just thinking, these long drive homes where you get to be completely like contemplative. What are we losing if we cut this? And I read it without that scene. Like I do a lot of soul work just to make sure that I'm not pitching something that is truly just driven by my own agenda. I try not to have one as an AD. Like I just want to make the day, right? And I want to make sure that everyone's getting what they need. But yeah, it is a process. So like I had it during like a whole episode before you came in, and then I think it got to a place where I think it was producible. And obviously we needed to make another round of cuts, but that's when I need the director. Like I'm not going to go beyond this because they're all important. So you need the director's input of like, wait, what if we blend all this? Like it's more of a creative conversation of, can we, because this is all the stuff that's important. This is as much as the writer wants to give us, right? This is, they've taken out the red pen. This is it. And it's on you, it's on us to figure it out. So I'm like, let's wait. I know it's over. Let's start the prep and let's talk to the director and we'll get there. And we are all obviously, even UPMs, line producers, creative, that we're all in it to make it better. We can all pitch thoughtful, creative solutions, not just cuts. So that's when it really gets fun. It gets, we're in those meetings and we're like,
And so then when the director shows up, I show up on 107, and then we are hopping into, obviously all the concept meetings, the departmental meetings. How are you viewing, well, I guess what's the psychology of how you approach that prep time with the director as you're also trying to make this thing shootable and lose those 2 days to make it a realistic episode?
Yeah. I mean, I get it's always interesting, and it's nice when you've had worked with somebody before, but you and I hadn't worked together. I've heard a lot of great things about you, and everybody was really excited to have you there. Even some of our crew members worked with you. Mike, the DP, worked with you. And so we were like, okay, we're going to be in good hands. But like, how do you develop a relationship in a minute? Like we have to, I think I just found you. We sat down and we just talked like human beings. Yeah. And I know that the gun is always to our heads. Like, so we have to start talking about the work in like exactly 30 seconds. But how are you? Where do you live? You told me you live here. And I'm like, I live real close over there. And it was just like this thing, like, I know you're human and I know you have a family and you described it. And I'm like, wow, you do all. So it was like this instant empathy I have for you, you had for me. And then I know we're going to at least be able to talk about everything. And there's no friction ever, right? Like it's here in service of. So it's like quickly, the first thing is just to have that 2 minutes of goodwill. This is like a theme that I have. And I use this quote all the time. I say like, it's 2 minutes of goodwill. The 2 minutes I can give to a director to come in and say how they weren't able to plug in the right directions. In your head, you're thinking, well, everybody else did it. But like literally to say, oh, that's crazy. What's up with your car? Like in the same with the actor, same with the grip who's like, well, they didn't get the right crane or whatever. And you're like, that sucks. I understand. That's really going to be hard for you. And I appreciate, it's like just that stop for a minute and offer that 2 minutes of goodwill. So like I do that at the beginning just to say, I'm here for you. And then I know we jump right in. And if I get a minute with you to say, I always like to know what is most important to you. Like, what is your favorite scene? And that we will never cut. Will you tell me that? I'll do whatever I can to not cut it, or your favorite sequence, or what you love best about the episode, so that when we're doing meetings, I'm not giving away, I'm not showing the hand. I'm trying to preserve all the things that you've quickly told me about, And my philosophy in like at all the meetings is to say, are we saying everything that we want? Are we, it's okay to dream. Like in TV, there's this concept where you're right. You don't have the dream. You don't dream big because you know what it's going to end up. But unless you know what the dream is, you're not going to understand how to get where you want to be and make all these cuts. My philosophy is encourage people to just think about things in concept. Literally, it's called the concept meeting, right? What is the biggest concept? There'll be an eye roll or a ugh. Like we know, we're not foolish. We're not stupid. We know we're not going to get to do all of it.
So I was thinking.
It's like, you want to do a drone in the building. Okay, let's ask. Like, it's not been done.
Yeah.
But it just, I'm used to that world of like, literally like somebody saying, okay, I'm going to blow up that whole block.
Right.
You mean and then you're going to pay. No, we're going to blow it all up. Okay, cool. Like,
right.
Okay, that's what and so I'm just used to hearing the big idea. And now I know in TV, we can't do it all, but we can do some of it. Right.
Yeah.
In some ways we find a way to even do it better because, necessity is the mother of invention. If we can't have access to that, or there's no money for that, we'll find the next best thing, which could actually be the best thing. So
right.
The philosophy is just to encourage people and not go into this mode of can't. It's like, say what it is you want. Like I encourage director, say the thing. It's your job to pitch. Keep pitching.
You make a good point, because I did this finale for the show Dead Boy Detectives, and it was like the first time I like kind of blew up a butcher shop and all kind of like explosions and all this stuff. And part was on location, and then the other interior stuff was on stage. And so, it was funny because like I wasn't like thinking small, but like I wasn't thinking big enough on some things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, where like sometimes the VFX, the stunt people, special effects people be like, hey, you want to, we can have this shit, have a spark, flashbang go off like in the middle of this part. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And they're like, you can do that many times you want. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh. Well, let's do that after this line. You know what I mean? And like, and it's like, you have to really, I guess it helps to know all the tools available to you. And that's why you have to have collaborators who are opening that door of education to you, but then, swing for it. Yeah, always. Because in TV, you do get beat down into this. And luckily, the people I work with they're not like that. They're like, well, let's try to do it. They know the realities, but just to encourage it and not come from a place of, it's going to be no. Just you encourage that, because like that's what keeps us sustained. Like I don't always want to do just the bare minimum. Like I want to go for it, and I'll put my neck on the line too. I'll say, I feel like we can shoot this in half a day. Like I'm putting my neck on the line, knowing that's almost fucking impossible. Right. We'll figure it out. But it is possible. But it's almost impossible. It's almost, and we do it, and we all fall. We all rise and fall together. So educate me about like how you go about scheduling a scene, because one of the things that we do, probably safe to say, a third of the way in, halfway in, you and I and the DP are probably sitting down looking at much like you've done that, first few passes on the schedule. You've also done passes on timing it out. Mm-hmm. What logic and kind of science are you applying to timing out every scene? And I know the difference from people and elements that are in it, but like, what's like your kind of Maria, school of rule of thumb? I mean, I used to, in the early days, I was more careful. Now I can just estimate. Like you work that muscle so much. But I remember in the early days, reading the scene, putting the number of people there, and like trying to create an algorithm of like how many setups I think this will be. And like, the first setup's going to take a little longer, maybe give it an hour. And then coverage should be 20 minutes around the horn. Like we'll figure it out. And like you computate. And I remember it would be painstaking, sitting alone in a dark room somewhere after I did the schedule, actually counting each freaking setup. Not even knowing if the director wants this or is even interested in traditional coverage, but it was just a tool from which to start. So like once I worked that muscle, now, I know if a scene's a two-hander and we have two cameras, like there are assumptions that I will make on everything, meaning we are shooting two cameras that, in TV, we almost have to. So like usually, and then there's always like an opportunity for a third camera, which, sometimes it's bonus, but a lot of the time, I did a whole show where the B and the C camera, the show lived in that camera because it was always the weird stuff that we wanted. But like just to know, put together, and obviously crane shots take longer. And are we waiting for a certain part of light? And then I know, okay, the director and the DP want to shoot, this is magic hour. Well, this is going to shoot in 20 minutes. So whatever the coverage is, like it'll take us an hour to set up and 20 minutes to shoot. I'm only going to give it an hour and a half. Maybe it wants more, but there is none. So it doesn't exist.
things that we've done. Like, we have the benefit of maybe having scouted a location, or if it's on stage, then I know what the set is like. I know how long it takes to light it.
So if you had right now, you had a 5-person, I'm totally making this up. You'd be like, this
dinner.
Okay, not dinner. You've got 3 people talking by a car, right? So who knows how they're going to be blocked? 3 people talking by a car, and then you have a 4th person who walks up to them and they have a few words, and then they all get in the car and drive off, and it's a 2-page scene.
Yeah. I think it's going to take about 4 hours.
Okay. Just that quick.
Well, what I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Is that, like, in TV, the goal is always, say this is the first scene of the day. We are from call to from shooting the master, it's an hour. Yeah. Like, that is the conceit. That is what we all strive to do. So we can just assume that, right? Mm-hmm. It's a real feather in your cap if we all can work, if we've achieved that, right? And then the actors have time for their coverage, right? So even in the worst blocking, if you can't cover 4 people in 3 hours, then we're in trouble, right? So, and then I allow for, if we want to just clear the whole set and do like a super, super wide, like, always having a little extra for something that isn't actually on the page. If you wanted a crazy overhead from this building up above, it looks cool. You wanted to we send a camera up. So I'm always knowing that there'll be a need to do something cool and interesting. And then we should be prepared to be getting that ready while we're doing the main shit, right? And so there'll always be that. And again, it's a 2-page scene, so the actors are they're gonna have to, assuming the worst blocking, sometimes it's 2-on-2, and then that 3rd person comes and sidles in. But what if everybody's somewhere? Like, right. That's when, if we're handheld, okay, we're gonna get there, we're gonna move around. But a lot goes into it. Like, the more I know, then the more dialed in it gets. But if I'm just reading it on the page and I'm trying to book a day, I'll go, okay, well, it'll take an hour to get it set up and we'll get a shot. And then if somebody can't cover all these people, and even if we're inside in 3 hours, then overall we probably have an issue. So it's just, I think if the show likes overs and then singles, and then they do a crazy, crazy close single, I go, okay, well, that's going to be 30, 40 minutes on everyone. So it's just literally a math equation. That's kind of what
and taking into equation all of those things. But then that's why having those meetings, that 4 hours becomes, 3, or it could become 6. If the director is like, yeah, but on this other scene, I'm going to be very simple on that. And here's why this is important.
Yeah. And that's why, like, when, I don't even know if this is appreciated or not, but when we go on our direct, so after you've seen every location once, you got your top 2, or you just lock in, you're like, I like this one. And I'm like, great, let's all go back and let's walk through the work. So then I really can say, because the location's the other X factor, right? Like, it's really hard to get a camera up there. Well, maybe let's get an arm. Like, to just start actually making the movie. Like, how, in any instance in TV, and like I've done film too, there's not an infinite amount of time, right? So you're like, in any given world, and no matter what world you're in, 2 people talking at a table, right? Is it 200? It's an hour and a half. You're never going to get any more. A phone call, you got 45 minutes. Like, one person on the phone, like, no other scenario in TV do you get ever more than that. But it's like making assumptions. And then, I think the assumptions are based on like the math equation. Like, I'm not making, based on the show. We want to do mediums, overs, and tight. Like, show wants that kind of coverage. And I know directors like to cover in TV because they're literally covering their ass. So you have to build it all in. And then it's a process of, are we a half an hour off? Or are we an hour off? Usually it's pretty close because the show is the show, right? Like, the assumption is you're shooting the show. And then that's maybe the training that I've accrued on the show. I know what show I'm shooting. I know shooting. And then allow the director to say, well, I have a pitch for that. And this is what I'm doing.
Right.
And then we know, okay, well, that's going to save an hour. All right, that's going to take an extra hour, but that's worth it. So let's do that, but let's steal from here. And it's like, once we get into it, we're at location doing it, we're in meetings doing it, we're storyboarding doing it. The DP saying, you know what? I'm going to like the whole room. And like, we're coming up with everybody's plan of how to make it successful, you know?
Right. That's when it's really awesome, when everybody's on that same page, making it sing.
Yeah.
Now, how does your philosophy change when you get to production?
Ooh, let's see. Like all bets are off. No, philosophy is again, not losing the forest for the trees. It's like we have the big picture. We know how many days we have. This is the work each day. Like it's not carved in stone. It is carved in stone, but it's not carved in stone. Like you can be on the day. My philosophy is to just like take advantage of everything within the day. Like you might be getting ahead.
Right.
And so you're like, wait, could we pull, you know, that thing we wanted to do that you said you wanted to try? Should I get the grips to go make that rickshaw? Should we just go for it? We have it. And like always just being able to like pivot quickly into something we wish we could do, or, you know, even having to drop something is I just stay flexible. Like you learn this after having kids. It's like be flexible or die. Literally, it is that literal. And so I just, you know, we have a plan again. That is sort of my agenda, is to make the day, but it isn't about me. It's about, are things getting better the way Pete's shooting this? Should we just keep shooting it this way? He didn't tell me about this, but you saw this and it's working. So let's do it. Or the converse, you're stuck on this shot you really want, and we all know it's not working. And we look at each other and go, okay, this isn't working. Let's regroup. Like, and knowing that like we're all on the same team, like we all want the same outcome. So the philosophy when shooting is make sure you're allowing everybody to do the best job they can. It doesn't always mean rushing, but it means like, okay, guys, let's go. Let's get one more crack at this. What do we need? How do we, but it's literally like giving people the confidence that I have faith in what they're doing. Like I trust they're going to do it. And so well, it's all about just allowing people, if you've got to give them the space, the time to do it. And we've all agreed on the time, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And just obviously the philosophy in shooting too is you have actors now, right? They are a huge part of this puzzle that you haven't dealt with in prep. You really haven't. And you get to the set and they're like, oh, I don't know. And it's like,
I wouldn't walk through that door.
I know. It's like, Pete. So, but it's at that moment where you're like, look, best laid plans, but we're all talented filmmakers. So let's just figure this out, you know? And I've just learned also in filming is to just have empathy. You know, people are working really hard, but I know this from my own switch over into TV, like TV crews love to make a day. So I lean into that. Like, hey guys, this is the impossible 8-page day. And they're like, hold my beer. Like they're going to do it. Right. They want to please you. Right. And if I've been a nice person, they want to please me and the producers and the showrunner and the actors. They want to give. TV crews are amazing. Like they're givers, you know?
It really amazes me too. Sometimes we're like, you know, the small gift, if we want to call it that, of making a day elevates you as a director in ways, at least in the beginning of your career, like you don't necessarily expect. And then I'm just wondering, well, what are the other people doing? You know what I mean? Like what, and on particular shows where, you know, it's not that hard to make the day. Like if you're being specific, but I have a question that I'm wondering, because when I started out, and I won't even say started out, when I was going to film school, I mean, this is the mid to late 90s, you know, there was a very clear kind of avatar or cliche of like what a director was, but also what an AD was. And, you know, like I was never a yeller. I've always kind of been like laid back and didn't feel the need to like, I don't know, do posturing that made it seem like I was in charge. It was always like, if you're an AD, your first fucking quality has to be the bass in your voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the volume with which you could unleash it. Like,
Yeah.
how has that been something that's changed, or how has that changed? Or was that ever something difficult for you to navigate to get that respect? And, you know, moving forward, like, what are you finding are like the ideal characteristics to be a successful AD in today's industry?
Yeah. Well, I am also from the world where there was a lot of toxicity. It was. And I mean, I don't mean that I felt abused at the time because I was just working, but coming up in those ranks,
Yeah.
it was aggressive. That was the baseline. Everything is very aggressive, and you were spoken to in a certain way. And I think back then, I just didn't feel anything. Didn't let myself feel anything. I just wanted to do a good job, right? That's how we all start out.
Right.
And then I realized as I was moving up, times were changing. People were changing. And it was a good thing, right? For our industry in general. And then I realized I couldn't lean on those things. I couldn't be the aggressive motherfucker to make people afraid of me. Because people that were younger than me in my own department weren't going for it, right? So if you can't control your own, like I saw this happening, and I decided that I wouldn't be the way that I was trained. I had to unlearn so much. And it wasn't that the 80s that I came up with were bad people. They were just like militaristic.
Right.
And there's a code there that you're beating down on somebody, but it's not because you don't love them. It's not because you hate them. You just want the best job you can. That's a strategy. It doesn't work now because in our business, in our industry, we have a lot of creative people, and this kind of behavior, as soon as it was called out and called out in a very real way, everyone decided, yeah, we don't want to live like that anymore. We want the other way now. And so a lot of us quickly pivoted. And I feel like ADs that were aggressive, you know, those screamers.
Yeah.
Yes, people, when you screamed, ran and did shit, but they also hated your guts. So were they actually doing the thing that you needed them to do? Or were they just trying to, like, I saw this happening. I could see it behind the scenes. Right. And so you need both. You need to be respected in a way that if you're raising your voice, it's because you need everyone to pay attention. So you can explain the safety of this or the need to do this quickly. We are, you know, and there's that shift. But in general, it's you lead with that goodwill. You lead with grace. You lead with acceptance. You lead with humility. And like yelling and things happen, but it's different today because you're not attacking a person. You're just using a volume, right? Which is it's all you really need to do. That's what gets people's attention, or that's when you need to take the room over, you need to be loud. And you need to be serious. Like, this job is serious too. I like to have fun. It needs to be serious sometimes. So I think when people see the shift, they know you don't always have to be that way. Where back in the day you kind of did, or the people were. It was just what your assignment was. And now I think you can let that go. You can rely on other tools of, you know, people know you, or you've been honest about something, or they see your team working for you, or we're all just having fun while we're working our asses off. I think is the best asset is a fun crew, is like a fun job, is like a fun person who can be serious and gain, you know, garner attention and raise their voice, because the goal is to get to something faster, or, you know, with more seriousness or more safe, you know, just there's all of that. And so I did switch out of that because I'm from that world 100%. And it would be very early in my career, it would be very easier for me. And, you know, I can be tough on my team because I know that when people were tough on me, it just made me better. Right. There's a fine line though, right? Like, you got to be careful. You are going to affect people. Every day. I'm the voice of the day. And if I'm always on this tiring of let's go, then it just becomes tiring to people. And you've just begun the day, you know, and they have a muscle memory. They take it home at the end of the night. I don't want, you know, I want someone leaving the day knowing that they did an amazing job. They worked really hard and they got it done. And they had some fun along the way and they didn't get yelled at, you know.
I do not envy your job. So no, it's a real tightrope that you walk day in and day out.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything I haven't asked you about your craft that you want to make sure is said? Because, you know, I just rambled through this interview, but sometimes maybe I get in the way of something you really want to let folks know about being an AD.
Yeah. I think that knowing yourself, like you have to know yourself really, really, really well to do this job really, really, really well, because you can understand what is personal and what isn't personal, what you're filtering, what you're not filtering. And I just think really don't ignore any of your gut. Like, you know, when someone says to me, God, you should be a director. And, you know, I think that would be great, but I'm also perfectly happy being an AD. Like I love what I do. And the benefit of being the AD is that, you know, if you want to be a director, they say shadow somebody, go shadow. Like I've been shadowing for 25 years, right? So, you know, just by virtue of that, I know myself so well, and I know I can feel myself in every situation on set. And so it's just really important to listen while you're doing this job so that you know, it's just, that's what shadows do, right? You listen, you watch, you learn. So you're always going to be shadowing. Always. Even if you don't want to be a director, you are always shadowing that person.
Well, Maria Mantia, thank you for joining. This has been a really cool chance to just get to know you more, because as I always say, like you work and as you say, 2 minutes of goodwill, you know, you only learn so much. But it's been great to learn like how you got here and how you approach the job and do it so well.
Can I throw you some props too?
Oh, I will never turn that down.
Amazing. So at this point in doing this much TV, I've worked with hundreds of directors and you have been one of my favorite directors. And the reason is, I'm going to give you more props, is that you came in so pleasant. God only knows what you did the week before. I'm sure you were up late, but no one knew that you were ever taxed, in a bad mood, or you struggled with something. You came prepared. Like there was a mess of notes all over your script. And then I knew we were going to be okay, right? And then you told me this funny story once, which I knew was going to, like, I'll never forget it. You basically told me this story about, and I'll be very vague, so not getting in trouble. You were on a set, and it was your episode, and there was this key prop, this very big prop. It was like a big deal, and it had to be perfect. Right. You were getting ready to shoot a scene, and the prop was there, and it wasn't going to be a huge thing in the thing as you were planning it, but the people that were really wanting this thing to be everything it could be had a big issue with it, and they were going back and forth. They was yelling and screaming, and nobody was shooting. And you got called in maybe to express an opinion, and you smoothed it in a way, but you spoke and see people were unhappy, and so you just kind of walked over to the side, grabbed an apple box, sat down, just like read just, and I'm like, that's a winner. That's knowing when you know what I mean? It's like choosing your battles. Like that was not your battle. You were going to make this scene great. And like you continually did that so well, even with the actors. And that is when I'm saying I'm shadowing all the time. I learned some things from you about how to deal with it when you knew there was no way to please everybody. You weren't going to do it, and you weren't even going to get to do the thing that you wanted to do. So you were going to figure out how to do it all, right? And so that was really great. I wanted to just
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That really, I really appreciate and receive that, and that it warms me because, you know, you just like, and likewise, like, you know, like you just do the job and you don't ever know what people think or feel. Like, I mean, I guess you have a sense, but I've also known that what you feel is not real or accurate. So I don't put much stock into that either, because you just don't know how much of it's performative, you know, but you were on my list of people that I want to call when I get to do my thing.
Yes.
So that is my highest stamp of approval, because it was fun. I mean, we were all over Los Angeles County. Every day I think we did something cool. I mean, it was on a boat. Oh my God,
Remember that?
on a boat, you know, taking motion sickness pills, and then also like really, I think every day had something that I was like really excited to shoot.
Yeah.
We'll talk later, but I think one thing didn't make the cut. I've heard that, remember we were doing something that was kind of it was like all about timing and a wardrobe change and all this to kind of pull off a wonder.
And it did it. Yes.
I heard that it didn't make it because I worked with a line producer on something else. But you know what? We did it, and it's in the back pocket for some future idea.
Yeah. That was one of those things where you came up to me and you're like, so I have this idea. And I was like, wait, you want to do what? I'm in. Like, that's what you want? Let's go make it happen. Let's call these meetings and make it. It sounded so cool. And it's rare that an idea is new and fresh after 25 years, but it was. And it was like, let's do this.
That's awesome. Man, Maria, it's been such a pleasure. And I can't wait to work with you again.
Me too, Pete. It was great. Good luck.
Thank you. You
Can't
too.
wait to see it. Pete Chatmon, ladies and gentlemen.
A real AD taking us out, taking us home.
Woo! That's a wrap.
What's up, people? This is Pete Chatmon. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter via @PeteChatmon. Follow the pod on IG via @Let'sShootWithPeteChatmon, and hit up our mailbag with questions, suggestions, or hey, donations if you're feeling like it, via let'sshootwithpetechatmon@gmail.com. And just in case you need to know how to spell it, that's Pete with the last name Chatmon. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is produced and edited by the multi-talented cut creator Tristan Nash. Assistant produced by the young mogul Jada George, and features the wonderfully gifted Kelly McCreary as our announcer. It's written by yours truly, but I mostly come up with these questions on the fly, which you've probably noticed. Go ahead and get your podcast swag via PeteChatmon.com and leave a review on iTunes if so inclined. That shit matters. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by Scriptation. Scriptation makes it easy to go paperless on set, increase your productivity, and save hours of time. Let's Shoot listeners get a special discount on Scriptation Industry Pro. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to learn more. All right, y'all. Hope you enjoyed episode 63 with Maria Mantia. Hope you learned a little bit more about the creative collaboration that is working with an AD. Up and down the call sheet, all departments are finding their way to either her inbox or conversation with her as we move to make every single day on a production. So I thank her for her time and for joining the pod. Next week, I hope you'll join us again for an interview with Kelly Park. She is an accomplished pilot director in multicam. She started as an acting coach, and she's another one of those folks, like all of our guests, that I love to talk to because it's just a mixture of hustle, persistence, and doing all of that with aplomb. So we're using big words as we hit the outro. That feels apropos. And as always, stay safe, spread love, and keep creating. Thank you all for listening.